The samurai were nobles, a high-standing warrior class who emerged during the late 12th century in ancient Japan. The daimyo were great feudal landholders, the powerful vassals who ruled land on behalf of the shogun. The daimyo each had their own armies, recruiting skilled samurai into their ranks and paying them well. The samurai were looking to receive money, titles, and land in exchange for their services. The samurai would swear oaths of loyalty to their commanding daimyo, vowing to defend the lord's territories against rivals, serve in the daimyo's wars, and battle with hostile bandits such as robbers and rebels. The word samurai literally means to serve or wait on, or he who serves. The samurai were not only ferocious warriors, but were a central part in Japanese society, being granted great social privileges and greatly respected or feared. The ritual that surrounds the taking of the ultimate trophy, the human head, emerged with the samurai and became integral to a samurai's promotion, socially and economically. Head-taking is an overlooked factor in modern depictions of them. We rarely observe the samurai from such a perspective. The word samurai to the average person invokes ideas and descriptions such as bravery, honor, dedication to craft, and masterful warriors, whilst the taking of heads is immediately seen as severe and unnecessary. If the daimyo ordered the samurai to, let's say, pillage a town full of civilians, they had to obey. The sole purpose for a samurai's willingness to perform such actions was above all motivated by financial gain and advancing their social position. If they performed their duties well, they would be rewarded handsomely for it, but how were they to prove what they had accomplished? Head-taking became an accepted way of doing so. In the heat of battle, cutting the head off of a worthy rival on the battlefield was a source of great pride and recognition, some leaving markers to mark their heads for collection after battle. If the samurai was lucky enough to survive the battle and achieve victory, they could take the heads of the enemies they had slain as proof of their deeds. Many could be seen gathering heads from the fallen in the aftermath of battle, which became somewhat of an obsession and the norm, as without the heads, warriors were denied much honor and their triumphs in battle would never have been recorded. Once the heads were retrieved, they would need to submit a petition for a reward, called a gunchujo document, to request the reward they felt they deserved, provided they submit proof of their deeds. They could also use witnesses who saw them commit their deeds in battle. Sometimes, under certain circumstances, cutting off the upper lip and nose together was also acceptable. The heads would then be viewed in a highly ritualized one-day ceremony by the victorious daimyo, who was seated on a camp stool and surrounded by his closest retainers. He would not wish to be presented with a bloody trophy, so there was an entire ritual to beautify the severed heads before they were to be displayed. First they were washed and their hair was combed and tied neatly. They would then be made presentable by cosmetics and perfume. Once this was done, the teeth were blackened by applying a dye called a haguro. White teeth was a sign of distinction, so they applied the dye to desecrate the head. Perfume could then be added to the head for final display. Traditionally, women were responsible for carrying out this process. The heads were then carefully arranged on a table or mounted on a spiked wooden board with labels for identification. The name of the beheaded, the weapon used, and who they worked for was recorded on paper and tied to the hair queue. The daimyo was then free to enjoy a relaxing head viewing ceremony to celebrate his victory. Oan, the daughter of a samurai, experienced the horror of sleeping beside a collection of heads in Ogaki Castle during the Battle of Sekigahara, which was under attack at the time. She wrote, If there was no time, a hasty ceremony could be arranged, with the heads placed over leaves to soak up the blood. If the samurai was to be believed for his deeds, he would be rewarded. He could earn a promotion of rank, be paid with bags of rice, earn landlord titles, or receive a special item such as a prized sword. The samurai were relatively normal people during times of peace, serving as advisors, managers, and overseers of the daimyo's lands. Samurais were expected to act under a code of honor and virtue called Bushido, stressing ethics and virtue. Promises and truces were still violated, villages were burned, and the defeated slaughtered, as honor came from victory and nowhere else. Some samurai were also not very noble when it came to the peasantry. The warriors became infamous for beheading total strangers on the roadside. The samurai did have the law on their side, as they had been specifically granted the right to kill anyone of lower rank, other than themselves, if they considered the person to be acting rudely. This head-based reward system was completely open to exploitation. Some samurai would take the head of a peasant and say it was a warrior, or a foot soldier and say the head was of a great hero, and hope that no one would know the difference. After actually taking a valuable head, some would abandon the battle with their money already made. The daimyos sometimes even prohibited taking heads so their men would focus on victory instead of getting paid. With small daimyos possibly consisting of 10,000 men, and large daimyos consisting of many more, up to 100,000 men, we can only imagine the number of heads that were being collected. The invasion of Korea in 1592 presented the logistical problem of shipping heads back home to their commander, Hideyoshi, who demanded proof that his generals were carrying out his wishes. When Nam 1 was captured, 3,726 heads were collected. Only the head of the Korean general was kept intact. The others were discarded after the noses had been removed, the beginnings of the process of nose collection. Hideyoshi began to receive a steady stream of shipments containing noses pickled in salt and packed into wooden barrels, each one meticulously recorded before leaving Korea. These barrels were buried in a burial mound near the Great Buddha, where they remain today. In 1600, Kani Saisu claimed the highest number of heads ever taken during the Battle of Sekigahara. He alone took the heads of 17 enemy soldiers. He claimed to have taken 22 heads but could only prove 17 of the kills. The samurai were ultimately abolished in the late 1800s, and with them, the ritual of headhunting.